We're back here on the program, The Platform, and we are speaking today about relations between Cuba and the Bahamas. And it is an interesting program because it is wide-ranging, let's put it that way. Mr. Ambassador, the embargo that the United States still has in place against Cuba, it's been in place for about 50 years.
More than 50 years.
Yes. I believe that you are saying some improvement between the United States, the relations between the United States, or trade between the United States and Cuba, aren't you?
It's just in practical terms, the embargo, as you say, it's still there, and they have strengthened the embargo during the last 2-3 years, you know. So in the past, we have some kind of we have a specific situation after the hurricanes on 2006. The U.S. government allowed some agricultural farmers in the U.S. to sell their produce to Cuba. The problem was the condition, you know, because to sell that, we have to pay in cash. We cannot use credits. We have to pay it in advance. So the boat or the vessel goes full to Cuba and return empty to the U.S. So the shipping cost was higher. So at the end of the day, we say, okay, during these 2 years, it was okay, but now we have to find a different solution because it is not a good option for us. Right now, the embargo is still there. They are now, when I told you they have been strengthened, the embargo, is because in the last 2 years, many banks, international banks, they have to pay fines because they made business with Cuba. Just a few months ago, a French bank has to pay almost $1,000 million because they had business with Cuba. And all the different financial institutions, they have to pay fines to the U.S. government because they're supposed to violate the embargo. And that's why we call blockade and not embargo, because embargo is supposed to be something between you and me. But in that case, it also affects third countries, like those companies, European companies, and that. So that's why we call blockade. But anyway, the embargo is still there, and right now what we have is the same that we had during Clinton period. You know, during Clinton period, they allow some license for academic exchange, some license for cultural exchange. So after came Bush and he removed this, and now Obama returned to what we had during Clinton period, but nothing new, you know. So, and we are still waiting. Just on October, 188 countries vote in the United Nations against the embargo, including the Bahamas. And so that tells us that the majority of the international community told the U.S. government, okay, this is a wrong policy, you have to change it. And we are still waiting for that.
Do you see that embargo or blockade being lifted anytime soon?
I hope that yes, in the future, because it has not sense. Even in the U.S., more and more people, including political leaders like Hillary Clinton, just a few months ago recognized that it was a failed policy, that they have to change because at the end they don't get what they want. So I think that if they have a common sense, they're supposed to lift the embargo in the future.
How has that embargo impacted relations between the Bahamas and Cuba? Because I know that there are some Americans who come through the Bahamas to connect on Cuban Airlines or Cubano Air to go on to Cuba. And there's a difficulty, I believe, in bringing goods out of Cuba going to the United States. How has the embargo affected relations between the Bahamas and Cuba?
Well, in that terms, when you see that how it's affected, for example, I can tell you that if you are a Bahamian people and you want to travel to Cuba for any reason, you cannot take with you, just one example, a credit card. Because if your credit card has some kind of links with the American banks, you cannot use it in Cuba. So it creates problems for the Bahamian people, and that is another example that the embargo affects not only Cuba and the US, but also third party.
Yes.
So you are a Bahamian, you have a credit card, you can use it everywhere except in Cuba. Because if you use it they can frozen, you are assessed. Many people in the Bahamas, when they travel to Cuba, they ask us, okay, please don't stamp the visa in our passport.
Do not stamp the passport.
Yes, because we don't want problems once we want to enter in the US.
Yes.
You know, so this is another why you have to think in that. If you are, if they said, the US government, they respect the human rights and they respect the freedom and everything, why you don't allow your people and the rest of the people all over around the world to visit Cuba freely? You know, what are you afraid? You know, in my opinion, they don't want that people see by themselves the situation in Cuba.
Do you think countries like the Bahamas are cowed in any way in dealing with the government of Cuba on any issue due to the power of the United States of America?
No, you know, in the case of the Bahamas, we have a very, as I told you, a very good relation. For example, Bahamas votes against the embargo in the United Nations. The foreign minister of the Bahamas includes in his speech to the United Nations General Assembly a mention against the embargo. So he mentioned the embargo as something that it's supposed to be lifted. And in that terms, we don't have those kind of problem, you know, because Bahamas is an independent country, so it's simple also that tell the other one, okay, I don't tell you nothing about your friends, so don't tell me nothing about my friends, you know. In that sense, we don't have this kind of, but other countries, we have problems like this, you know, because sometimes you have to put in balance the relations with Cuba or with the US, so sometimes it's a problem for the governments.
There are two areas, Mr. Guzman, that Bahamians are concerned about with respect to Cuba. One has to do with medical services and the other education. It seems to me that quite a number of Bahamians are going to Cuba for both. Let's deal with education first. You are training quite a number of people in medical sciences. Are you satisfied that they are getting the kind of exposure that they should get? And the question really should be, is Cuba well capacitated in terms of technology to offer what you wish to offer to students in medical services?
Yes, I think that in that case, the answer was made by the World Health Organization and the Pan American Health Organization also too, that just recently recognized the Cuban health system as one of the best in Latin America and the Caribbean, and as one of the best in the world, you know. So, and this is part of our philosophy of cooperation with the rest of the world. So we try to share with those, with the countries, with our friends, in the case of, in this case, with the Bahamas and the Caribbean. We want to share with them, not this one that we don't want. We want to share with the Bahamas and with the Caribbean something that we have and we can offer to you through like scholarships to prepare your people to in the medical, but also we have in the technical schools. We have also in different areas, you know. We offer also Cuban teachers, like we have now here in the Bahamas, working as part of the cooperation agreement between both Ministries of Education. We have Cuban doctors and nurses working all over around the world. We had those of them in the Bahamas in the past. Just a few months ago, once the United Nations Secretary General requested help to deal with the Ebola, Cuba was the first country to send doctors and nurses to Africa to dealing with this issue.
Yes.
You know, so I think that yes, we are well capacity to offer what we are offering during this year.
In terms of state-of-the-art equipment, because of the embargo, hasn't there been a limit placed on the kind of state-of-the-art equipment that you are able to get for teaching purposes?
In that sense, my answer will be that yes, of course, the embargo impact in that area. And of course, we will be able to offer a better training if the embargo will not exist, because we will have access to the top technology in the world. But as a blockade country, we have been forced to find solutions for those problems. So my point is that maybe we don't have the best equipment in a surgery room in Cuba. It's possible. But we have the best doctors. So if you need a hair surgery, don't worry about the equipment, that you will have the best surgery that you need, you know.
Why are you so assured of that?
Because we have proved this during this 50 years old. In Cuba, we have our health system have achieved different goals. In that sense, we were one of the first countries in the world to have a surgery of the heart, an open heart surgery. We have brain surgery. We have different orthopedic equipments that we use and we create in Cuba, you know, made by our own scientific, and we have been developing those areas in Cuba. So, and as I told you, maybe this is not the best equipment, but to manage the best equipment, you need to prepare your people. So in Cuba, we have well-trained people. Just one example. If you go into Cuba to make an investment, in Cuba we look for funding, or we look for marketing or technology. But you don't need to bring people to work in those investments in Cuba. The people that were in Cuba in those foreign investments are Cuban people that were well-trained to work with that, you know? So because we consider that the human being is the main resource that we have in Cuba. So we have been working with that for the last 50 years. And as I told you, this is not something that I tell you right now. This is something that the OPS and the World Health Organization recognize publicly.
In terms of getting our young physicians qualified, that has been a problem. The recognition of their certification out of Cuba, isn't that right?
Yes, it's right, and it is something that we are working on that, you know. But it's something that is related with from the technical point of view. Just an example. We have the same problem with the veterinary specialists. So last year, a delegation from the Bahamas Ministry of Agriculture traveled to Cuba. They visited different facilities in Cuba, and they talked with the people in Cuba, and they said, okay, to recognize the title, the certificate that you made here in Cuba, we need that you include in the curriculum this, and this. So they include these topics in the curriculum, and right now we have Bahamians that graduate in veterinary in Cuba, that their title was, or their certificate was recognized here in the Bahamas, because the curriculum includes everything that the Bahamas requests. So we have to do something similar in the case of the doctors, you know, because it has not sense to send people to study in Cuba, spend there for 6 years, and at the end when they return, they cannot work here as a physician, you know. And we have here in the Bahamas Cuban doctors working as a physician here, that they studied in the same places that the Bahamians did it in Cuba, you know. So it is something that I think that we can resolve.
Very good. I know that you've been working with Bahamians with respect to the optometry project, but I have not heard much of that in the recent past. There used to be a program between Cuba and the Bahamas. You had optometrists.
Miracle operation.
Renal.
Miracle operation.
Medical operations, yes. Coming to the Bahamas and Bahamians going to Cuba. What has become of that program?
Right now, the patients travel to Cuba. The Bahamian patients travel to Cuba, and they have the medical appointment there in Havana. You know, we have been working with the PHA, the Public Hospital Authority, in order to try to recover this program and to get some kind of agreement that allow medical Cuban medical specialists to come to the Bahamas and work here as part of the cooperation agreement between both countries, you know.
Why did the program, why did it experience difficulties?
Well, you know, it was, before I arrived here, I think that it was some kind of technical issues, you know, that don't allow to continue the program. But now we are trying to recover.
Okay. Education, the Cuban educational system, I understand, has been producing some of the best students in the region, and you've done extremely well in that regard. What makes Cuba the leader in the Caribbean with respect to secondary education?
It has a relation with, as I told you right now, that for us the most important resource is the human resource.
Human resource.
Yes. So we as a government, we have a policy, you know, that everybody has the right to go to the school. It doesn't matter if you are a son of a doctor or if you are a son of a plumber. You have the same right to go to the school, even to the university, you know. So first of all, the school is free for everybody.
Including university? Including
university. It doesn't matter if you are a male or a female, if you are a black person or a white person, if your father are doctors or your father are technicians, you have the same right. The only thing that you have to do is to approve the test. If you pass the test, you can go to the university without pay anything. Because that allows us to have right now in Cuba thousands and millions of university graduate people there in medicine, engineers, scientific, sports, everything, you know. So
you've been exporting doctors?
Well, we have some people say that we export doctors. In our we prefer to say that we send doctors to cooperate with those ones that they don't have it, you know, like as I mentioned before, the Ebola. We have this humanitarian crisis in the world, and we need to resolve, because now Ebola is in Africa, but tomorrow could be here in Latin America. So it has not been something, from the human point of view, you need to help African people. in favor of themselves, but also in your own benefit, you know, because if you control the problem, it's better for everybody. So if we have the if we have the doctors, if we have the nurses that they need, why don't we send them to help them, you know? So, and at the end of the day, we don't receive nothing, just to be proud that we help the African people and the world to manage with those kind of crises. It's the same. We had thousands of Cuban doctors in Brazil, for example, and a lot of persons criticized the program and said a lot of things about the program. But the fact is that in those places that the Cuban doctors are working now, before no one was there. So they don't go to Brazil, for example, to take a job of a Brazilian doctor. No, no, no. They are in the jungle. They are in those places that there was not doctors, never. And now they have for the first time doctors and nurses. So, and every time that you see Cuban doctors all over around the world, you will see them in those places that no one wants to go there. There you will find a Cuban doctor. I have a very enlightening experience in Haiti. After the earthquake, I was there as part of the group that traveled there to help the Haitian people. And there was also some doctors from different countries. And sometimes they have some kind of, issues with the Cuban doctors. And I went to talk with some person in the government, and they told me, don't worry about that, because those doctors, they just came here to take a picture. In 3 weeks, the only ones that will remain here will be the Cuban doctors. And now you will go there and you will see the Cuban doctors still in Haiti.
Let's take this final break on the program, Ambassador. And we are talking about the 40th anniversary of the relations between Cuba and the Bahamas. You came to the Bahamas just a year or so after the Bahamas attained independence, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Let's take this final break. We'll come right back.
Thank you.